Good evening, all. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me for Crypto and Chill, as always, is Jeff, the Blockchain Report. What's up, brother?
What is up? Happy Friday. Happy early
Yep.
birthday to
Uh,
America.
yeah. Happy 4th of July Eve.
Yeah. Hope y'all
No,
enjoy some fireworks this weekend, some good food.
no, absolutely. No, I'm actually making some stew right now, but I'm like a little bit hazy right now. I freaking took a nap and like just barely woke up, so I'm kind of freaking out of it. Because I was like,
Uh,
we had a really good conversation with some of the Kita folks. We finally got some solid people that came in and like, wanted to have like a real discussion with us, and it actually was very productive. I was very pleased, and
mm.
but yeah, it's just after getting some stuff done today, and I lay down on the couch, was kind of doing some doom scrolling. My cat came and curled up with me, and next thing I knew, I was asleep. Oh.
Yeah, man, when the cats come up and start cuddling, you know it's over. She's
Oh,
like, "Oh yeah,
dude.
it's time, daddy."
Oh, dude, it was like freaking big time. Like she took me down hard. Like she's still over there sprawled out. But yeah, no,
I did, so I did Canton buy, and I noticed on Kraken that if you do an automatic buy, like buy now instead of setting a price, the price is a little bit higher because
yeah,
it was at 14 cents, and then it was like they had it at 14.03 or 14.33, and I was like, oh, let me just set this at 14 even, and it eventually hit. So I was like, oh, I'm glad I caught that. So something to
yeah.
keep in mind if
I noticed that too. It's like there was like a premium in there or something like that
Mhm.
because yeah, like when I bought earlier today, it was like 13.75. And I think when I bought it added on just enough to make it like almost 14 cents, and I was like, whatever, good enough. I mean, my average buy-in is pretty solid, so
Mhm.
I'm not stressing it too hard. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I bought like another $500, nothing crazy, just kind of
Mhm.
plussing up my bags, but it's just you know, and this is kind of something that we had. Part of the really good discussion that we had. A guy named Tom and a couple other people in our Discord, and I knew it was a misunderstanding. It's just we just needed to get the right people, and they popped in there, and I explained to them our trifecta. And in fact, I'll pull it up real quick. Um,
Mhm.
that the grade that we gave Kita wasn't a reflection of what we think of the project. It's just where it sits right now, and it's that way for every project. We didn't give even Canton as bullish as we are. We didn't give it a perfect score because it's still inflationary. And using our the measure that we go off of. Let me share my screen real quick. So using this is what we use to measure a project is value capture, which is and anybody that's watched the show knows exactly what I'm about to say. But if you're new, value capture, if the fees and revenue that are generated by the project. Well, let's start down here. So adoption. Um, So,
Mhm.
PETA and a lot of projects out there, they have people like the royal family and the Ask Group and all that. They've signed an MOU. That is a memorandum of understanding. It is the first step towards a real partnership. And I know what an MOU is. I've used it extensively in the military and in the civilian sector. It is the beginning. It's basically the discussion where you start building the framework for what will be used to draft a more formal and more legally binding agreement between two
Mm.
parties. So they've signed an MOU, but that is not a guarantee that it's actually going to happen. It very well might. But the way that we judge things here at the node is the current state. So mainnet isn't, it's live, but there isn't a whole lot going on mainnet right now. So there isn't a lot of fees and revenue generated. So, the first one, it's could change and it could change very quickly. But as of right now, it's not doing a whole lot. Testnet, they're testing the shit out of it. But mainnet, not so much. Revenue and fees generated, like I just said, not a ton going on as of right now, and so that didn't get a very high grade. And value capture, as of right now, and they agreed, it is a gas token, a cheap gas token, and it is used for governance. And there isn't a whole lot of demand right now for it as a governance token because there's not a whole lot of adoption. As there gets to be more adoption, then the demand for having a heavier weight in the vote of how the protocol, or how the chain evolves and how those fees are distributed and things like that become more and more valuable to the people that are invested in the project. So as it sits right now, we gave it a C, slash D based off that. That isn't a reflection of the future potential. That is just where it is at now for us, the token holders.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things can change. So, it was good to see that they we were able to like sit down and keep it logical, keep it adult, and and hash all of that out. And they agreed with us. They were after they listened to what we were trying to say, then it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. That makes sense. So anyway, I offered it if they wanted to come on the show tonight, and a lot of people don't like coming on live shows. I mean, a lot of people don't like public speaking. A lot of people don't have webcams. Whatever. Different people have
Mm-hmm.
different reasons. And so I didn't hold it against them, but I wanted to extend the offer because they were very, very, you know, very pleasant to talk to. And so so hats off to Tom, hats off to the rest of the crew that that came into our Discord and actually had an adult conversation with us. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. But hey, what up, Twinkerbell? Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Now, how many times have you like used these MOUs, memorandums of understanding, and how
Oh,
often do they
fuck.
actually go through versus how many times do they just get rescinded? And because that's an important part. It's like all these crypto projects over the years I've seen
Yeah,
have agreements with different
yeah,
things and big entities, and then it comes out, oh, we're not going to go forward with it. And you
yes.
also
That
see in
happens.
traditional finance with,
That
oh,
happens a lot.
NVIDIA partnership with so and so, and then it's like, oh no, that's not true. They were
Yeah,
just kind of talking, and then so people put all this weight on this one thing, and it's like, oh well, look, they got this partnership. When no, they're in talks, and that's not 100%. So,
well, an MOU is not legally binding in any way whatsoever.
mm,
Again, MOU is a memorandum of understanding. It's basically just saying this is what we're proposing, this is what we want, this is what we would like. It's a getting to know you. It's like going on a first date.
mm,
You're talking about how many kids that you might want, or you're talking about your politics, or it's the getting to know you. Maybe a little over the close action. You might get a good
yeah,
night kiss, but you're not married, you're not exclusive.
mhm,
You might not close the deal, but you're getting to know each other. That's what an MOU is.
mm,
So and not to say that it can't become more. Just like a good first date. It looks like Kita had a great first date with the Ask Group.
mm,
And I hope I hope it becomes more. And I have a small bag of Kita still. It's only a couple $100, But I kept a small bag of it. I hope it does well. Even if I didn't own any, I hope it does well. I want everybody to make money in crypto. All we're trying to do here is just educate people, and what they do with that education is 100% up to them. If they think we're full of shit and they want to invest in something that we give a low grade on, if you're a speculative investor and you're okay with kind of rolling the dice on some of these projects like Canton. We say it all the time. As bullish as we are on Canton, there's still a lot of question marks. It's like we're still waiting for that equilibrium to where it flips deflationary. Even if it flips deflationary, that's no guarantee of the price going up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to be realistic about this stuff. And I'm not fudding, Canton. I mean, I have a very large bag of Canton. It's I'm not fudding it. Aerodrome, my largest bag. I recognize that as it sits right now, it still uses the epochs. It still, it uses the flywheel. That's changing here this month, but it still uses the flywheel. And as David has pointed out, that flywheel that has worked in our favor can work against us. I mean, look at Black Hole. They
Yeah.
use the same model. It went to
Yep.
shit. There's a bunch of VE33 models out there that went to shit. It's basically exactly the same model that the old aerodrome, the current aerodrome, it uses. So, it's yes, we are still in a speculative market. Adoption isn't to the point that we can make good, solid choices about. You can get an idea of the potential of some of these projects and if they're going to be around for a while. But we don't know who the Googles are. We don't know who the Amazons are. We don't know who those are yet. We're speculating. We think we know. We might have an idea. That's all we're trying to do here is we're trying to figure it out for ourselves and help you figure it out. We don't pretend to know. Jeff doesn't know, which projects are gonna. Oh, maybe you do. I mean, like what are some of the ones that you're looking at?
Yeah. I mean, Canton, my top one. I would like to get some hype because
Mhm.
um, the tokenomics and stuff are solid. And I saw this news earlier that they seen this total hype that's been burned in just the past years. 8 million or 114,000 hype has been burned.
Yeah,
And so yeah, and there's a project called Arcade on Canton that has just locked 10 million CC tokens.
yeah,
So they're, I guess, a platform to enjoy trade and experience on Canton. So yeah, seeing projects like that get involved in actually making more of a bullish case for buying these tokens. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to diving into these projects in the Canton ecosystem to see what opportunities we can take advantage of that are coming down. Because if you can get in early and spot some early gems, I'm not saying all of them will be good, but doing the work. And I'm really glad that you and David kind of started doing the tokenomics deep dives and building that trifecta because we want to understand these projects in a better way than just what they're saying they're doing. And instead of just having some vaporware, we're like, okay, are they actually creating value for the token holders, not just the project itself? Because you're investing your own money. I mean, you're not just going to go buy some penny stock and hope that it's going to be the next Microsoft. That's what we're trying to do here: educate and inform everyone so that you don't lose your ass. Because
mhm.
we've seen plenty of people lose their ass in the markets just because they invested in dog shit coin. And it's heartbreaking because people don't want to come back when prices start pumping. They're like, oh, I should have been in crypto, and they're sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So
because
yeah, it's important.
they got burned once. You know, they got
Yep.
their heart broken. You know, they're not ready
Yep.
to get they're not ready to get back out there and and meet a nice lady. You
They
know,
had the MOU ripped apart.
right? So no, it really just what the thing that really just makes me so bullish about Canton is the amount of organizations that aren't in discussions with them, but that are actually live on the network, and just the endless, just the endless line of organizations that are in the process of launching. Not MOUs, nothing like that. They are actually in the process of launching. Um,
Mm. And
let's
do all of the projects launching on Canton, are they required to become validators?
I don't know. I don't want to assume. I do not know if they are required. Most of them
Okay.
do, and the
Hmm.
way that the tokenomics work and the way that the architecture works and everything. If you run a validator or super validator, you have to lock Canton tokens,
Yeah.
and so that is part of the tokenomics. I just that when it comes to our trifecta, it's
And you
I
have to
mean,
be verified too, right? Like you have to be vetted and
yes.
to make sure no bad actors, and which is super important. I mean, that's awesome that they did that.
No, absolutely, David. Yeah, I'm just it's just for me, it's just a matter of time until it flips deflationary. Unless something major happens with like where there's some major exploit or something. I mean, anything can happen, but it barring any of that, it's only a matter of time before this thing goes deflationary. Because really, the only thing that's generating the fees right now, to be honest, is all of those repos. The short term loans. The repos that are
Mhm.
going on chain. That
Yeah.
$2 to $3 million a day in fees. That's just that one organization running their repos. So you got J.P. Morgan Chase that I think they're putting like 15% or 20% to start of their repo market on Canton, and then you have all the other things that are currently being built out. Again, not MOUs, not stuff like that. Like they're actually building out, going live. Um, it's we're already sitting at a point to where if another like JP Morgan Chase, if their repos, if the TVL is around 400 billion, like the other organization, that would push us potentially to that equilibrium. Because as we're sitting right now, let's see, it's Canton.io, I do believe. Cantonthetie.io. No, it is.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, David. Is that OUSD stablecoin launching on Canton? That's the
Um,
new
as,
one that
as of right now, no. I thought I was wrong. I thought that it was, but I looked it up earlier today because I was about to comment on X on somebody's post because they were saying the four chains that it was launching on, and I was going to say, well, you forgot Canton, and I was like, wait a minute, my spidey sense tingled a little bit, and so I went and looked it up, and it's not on Canton. The only stable coin that's on Canton right now is USDC, which on the Canton network is USDCX.
okay. Okay. Huh.
So it looks like it pumped. So yesterday it was at 0.53, and today it pumped up to 0.62. So this is the burn mint ratio. So the way that it sits right now is there is about 300 to $400 billion of TVL in those repo markets that are actively being moved. That loans that are being processed, things like that. on the Canton network, and that is what it is generating all this right now. So if it gets to $1 trillion of TVL, then potentially we're going to reach that that equilibrium. The whole value of one is that equilibrium. And once it hits that equilibrium, that means, once it pushes past that, that means that more tokens are being burned in fees than new tokens that are being minted. Because there is, and again, we're going to be 100% transparent. Canton has an unlimited supply. But you can see that there's halvings, and less of them are being minted. So at first they had a bunch of being minted to incentivize people to build, to incentivize the validators and super validators and people to build apps and all of that to build out the network. That went through a halving back in January of 2025. Again, in January of 2026, there was another halving. And you can see that new minting of tokens has been trickling down. And potentially it's going to get again to a point to where more is burned than is minted. There's still a lot of what ifs and maybes with Canton. That's why it hasn't gotten a perfect score from us. But it is one of the ones that, when it comes to the way that we measure, it is one of the highest scoring. Them, Hype, are two of the ones that we've given the highest scores to.
So which institutions are using the Canton network right now? You got JP Morgan, right?
Well, let's look at let's actually go to their website.
Yeah. And some advantages of why they would want to use a blockchain like that: instant settlement, cheap fees, and privacy, right? Are those the top three you would say?
Well, I think the reason that they want to use it is one is privacy, but two, it was purpose built for this use case. It wasn't an afterthought. They're not adding functionality. I mean, they're adding functionality, but most of the functionality that these institutions need, not just want, but what they need, they built into it over the past decade. So they've been quietly building for the past decade. This isn't a new project. They've been building for quite some time. Just nobody talked about them. And they just kind of sneaky ricked everybody and just popped up one day. But they as far as KYC and AML, that's built in. A lot of other projects are adding that after the fact. Privacy, a lot of other projects are trying to add that after the fact. It's built in with Canton. It's as far as these siloed networks, they have it to where it's customizable, to where they can, these different institutions that are using it, they can actually make it to where it's varying levels of privacy. So, say that, I'm sending money to Jeff, like he's JP Morgan Chase and I'm Wells Fargo.
Some
And
sats? You can
yes,
say
then of course, me and him want to have visibility on that. The banking institutions want to have visibility on that. And potentially maybe a regulatory body wants to have, visibility on that. But we don't want anybody else to have visibility on that. You can configure it that way. If you want it to be fully public, you can configure it that way. If you want it to be to where only me and Jeff can see it, you can configure it that way. That is a very big deal for institutions. They don't want everybody to see. They don't want an open ledger. They don't want people to see. They spend a lot of money for algorithms and these AIs and to build these strategies that they use to trade and to do different things. They don't want us to know, be able to front run the the moves that they're making when it comes to trading tokenized commodities or stocks or anything like that. They want to hide behind privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that has a lot to do with why it's getting the adoption that it's getting.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ecosystem. So let's go
And this is
to,
great because you can see who's like super validators um, on there.
let's see if we can look, by super validators. So, I mean, you can sort it by all these different things. Here we go. Super validator. So these are the super validators right now. You got S Ridge, a global investment firm. Angel Hack provides developer education and programs. BitGo, cold storage and custody. Bitwave, a digital finance platform for enterprises to track Kenton and B2B payments, business to business. Blockdaemon, institutional gateway to Web3. That's big. Broadridge, massive. It's an app on Kenton, processes trillions in tokenized UST repo every month. So this is what's currently on Kenton. This is where what that 400 billion that we keep talking about that is generating that $2 to $3 million in fees a day. That's Broadridge. That's just Broadridge. That is why I'm one of the reasons I'm bullish. You got Chainlink. Chainlink provides infrastructure. It's the interoperability. Chainlink has is a super validator. Of course, Canton Strategic Holdings. ChainSafe builds open source infrastructure and tools. Circle, USDC, they're a super validator. Coinmetrics, Copper, Cumberland, DFNS, Digital Assets, the creator of Canton Network. The DTCC, an active participant in the Canton and advancing the on-chain migration of U.S. treasuries. This is a regulatory body here in the U.S. Elliptic, Figment, Fireblocks. We did a deep dive on Fireblocks. They don't have a token or anything, but Fireblocks is a huge part of the future financial system that's being built out. They provide a lot of the functionality for a lot of this. Five North, Hex Trust, Hi-Fi, Hypernative, Intellect EU. A bunch of these I've never heard of, to be honest. Layer Zero, uh, Ledger, Liberty City Ventures, Luca, Mesh, MPCH, the
The
Nasdaq.
Nasdaq. That's right.
That was a big one with tokenized stocks and commodities and things like that. They're a super validator. That's saying something. If the Nasdaq became a super validator, that's saying something. SBI Group, a founding partner of the Canton Network and a super validator. Societe Generale is I believe, a bank connected to Canton apps like Broadridge, DLR, issuing and managing tokenized assets. Talos, the Thai, Visa. Visa's another one. Isn't YZI Labs? Isn't that Avalanche?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's oh damn. Um yeah, actually, why is he
And then you got
labs?
Zenith. Zenith that we did the interview with. We had Gustav, their head of ecosystem. So Zenith is bringing EVM DApps, from ETH mainnet to Canton. So, potentially, that is going to bridge a lot of liquidity and generate a lot of fees. So anybody that builds an EVM compatible DApp, it's going to be available on Canton Network, and potentially, they haven't launched fully yet, and they're going to have a token, but it hasn't launched yet. But that is potentially going to generate fees that will be burnt and get rid of tokens. So, and this is just super validators. That's all. I mean, that isn't everybody. If we show all, I mean, we can scroll down this for quite some time. between validators, super validators, people that have built apps, not exchanges, protocols, just you name it. I mean, this just the list goes on and on and on and on. This
Yeah.
is all the people, all the
Oh,
stuff.
YTI Labs is the rebrand of Binance Labs.
Okay, that's what it was. I knew it
Yeah.
was something like that. So Binance as is a super validator. So basically, all of these are apps, Canton Foundation members, industry bodies, financial institutions, market infrastructure, service providers, super validators, and validators is what all of these. So there's 313 partners currently that have been announced. I'm sure that there's more people that are in the works and things like that. But as far as actually actively part of the ecosystem, 300.
313.
Yeah. So
And that's
and
on their official website too. So that's
yeah,
solid. And that's what I look for when I'm doing some of these deep dives on projects, or even trying to find like wallets or protocols to use. I'll kind of search using AI to kind of find out certain projects and ecosystems, and then look on the official website and see, okay, how credible are they? Is the, like in this case, is Canton Network putting them on their website and promoting them in a way that makes them more official? Because some projects you're like, oh, they have a less than 1,000 followers on social media, but if they're listed under their website, it gives them more credibility because the actual project that's building the network has them listed. They're like, okay, then I feel much better about exploring that project more. But and that's something else, people need to take into consideration. Like, is this just some bullshit project that's like, yeah, we're building on here, but they don't have any kind of support from the ecosystem itself?
well, I know that was a thing for a while. Is basically where people were making claims, that they were, that there was, different groups and organizations that were building, on their network and things like that, when it wasn't the case. And that it's been a minute since I've seen that, but it was a couple of years ago. That was like a really really big thing where you
Mm.
really had to do some research and find out if indeed that organization or group. And there was a couple of crypto projects that actually I think they got like cease and desist orders from some organizations saying you need to take our name off your website because we're not working with you.
Ooh, yeah, they can get sneaky, man.
I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
it's like entrapment. You're you're like, hey, look, we're working with this project, and that also goes back to this MOU, or the memorandum of understanding. These projects can put out these fluff pieces and make it look nice and good and bullish, but you got to really dig in to the meat and potatoes of what's being said, the agreements that they're signing or putting out there, the news, who's putting out the news. um I know, I think it was Seeking Alpha that has done this in the past. They've put out news on traditional finance stuff that, oh, so and so had this partnership, or they signed this deal, and then it's a week later, oh no, that was false, or it was just rumors, and
Mhm.
it pumps the stock up, but and then
and,
it's
and,
like,
and
oh fuck.
well, and that's the thing you got to be careful of is especially with a lot of projects that they depend, because I mean, and this is the reason why we have the trifecta, is 95% of the crypto projects out there, the team depend on being able to sell the token to be able to fund operations, to pay salaries, to pay for office space, all that kind of stuff. So it benefits them to hype the project and get speculative pumps that they can sell into to, and to be honest, there was until I come up with the until I do the research, I don't want to give too much credibility to it because the person that brought it to me, they're a little too anxious for us to report on it. And so
Oh yeah.
I want to make sure that it's legitimate, but there is a project. I'm not going to name it because I don't want it to come across as us fudding it. But there is a project that there has been allegations and just allegations from one person. But they did send me some wallet addresses. I have done some quick peeking around, and but I want to make sure that a certain project isn't sending their tokens to exchanges, and then when because they know bullish news is about to come out, and when bullish news comes out, they are selling those tokens. Basically selling into people retail. Buying the token off the bullish news because that's what silly retail does. Um, but I want to make sure that the claims are valid before I put a name to the project because again I don't want people to think that there's something there when there may or may not be.
Yeah. No, that's important. I mean, it's always verify,
Yep.
verify. Don't just trust.
Yeah. No, and genuinely, I mean, we are not trying to fud any project. We aren't trying to pump any project. We are here to just do research, state facts as we see them. I mean, we're gonna get stuff wrong. You still need to do your research. You can't be 100% lazy. We're trying to make it easier for you. Get you a jump start, give you the basics of this is the token, this is the current tokenomics, this is some of the stuff that's going on with it right now. We're giving you a starting point, and then if you find that project interesting based off of our deep dive, that is your launch pad to dig in deeper and to do your own due diligence. And if you see that it has legs and it matches your risk profile and you see the potential in that project and you want to invest in it, awesome. If we give something a C or a D or even an F, that shouldn't dissuade you from looking deeper into it. Maybe you'll find something that we missed, and you end up being really bullish on it, and you buy some of it, and it pumps. Just be and
Mhm.
just because we're not bullish on something, it doesn't mean that there can't be a speculative pump. It doesn't mean you can't make money trading it. XRP, there's plenty of people that trade the volatility of XRP and make a bunch of money doing it. There's plenty of ways to make money off these projects. We are specifically looking at these projects, at least I am, of long-term investment that meet our trifecta. That's because those are the things that if I was going to invest in a traditional business, I would look at, okay, what kind of business, adoption, what kind of business are you doing? If you're a coffee shop, what kind of what kind of foot traffic, how many people do you have in and out of here on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Fees and revenue. What kind of profit are you making? What is your overhead? Employees, coffee beans, creamer, sugar, all that stuff. I want to look at the books. If I'm going to invest in your company, I want to know, are you profitable? That's fees and revenue. You have adoption and fees and revenue, and then value capture. If I invest, how am I going to make money? If I give you $10,000, how am I going to get paid back? What is that going to look like? If you're an angel investor and they haven't, if they haven't opened or they haven't built their services yet, a lot of times, like if you've ever watched Shark Tank, a lot of investors like that, angel investors, they want to know, okay, I'm going to give you this amount of money for this, percent of your company. But I want out of the first 10,000 sales, I want 50% of that or 20% of that. And then after that, it scales down by like 1%, per 10,000 until I get my initial investment back. There's all kinds of different ways to structure it, but that is what the value capture is. The value capture is, what claim do I have on your fees and revenue? So all we're doing is trying to take an old model of valuating a company, a traditional company, and we're trying to copy and paste it over to crypto. Because of, it has differences. We're using the token as our claim on the fees and revenue. So we didn't we're not geniuses that came up with, this trifecta. We're simply tweaking it to more accurately match the crypto market as opposed to traditional markets. That's all we did. It like I said, it's not rocket science. We're just, that's the best way that we have found to look at these assets in an unemotional, unspeculative, not unspeculative, but a less speculative way than just saying we're going to buy this because they're, like Chainlink. Chainlink is doing banging business. Adoption, they're off the fucking charts. But I have a bag of Chainlink. So if you want to call this FUD, I'm fudding my own bags. I have a very large bag of Chainlink. I'm speculating, but I understand it's speculation. But holding it to our trifecta, great adoption. Fees, it's generating a ton of fees. But the token, if you look at the token, there really is no value capture for the token. I hate to say it, but I'm betting on there's enough, it's going to pump enough based off speculation. So that's why I keep holding my link.
Yeah. Oh, and Crispy was asking if there was a tokenomics leak with Morpho. He's trying to remember if fees go to Morpho or not token holders.
Yeah, they don't go to token holders, unfortunately. Let me bring it up real quick because we've done the deep dive on it.
And if anyone wants to check out Morpho on Twitter, they dropped an article today, the Morpho Effect, June 2026. So I guess kind of a recap on what they did this past month.
So no, that's good, Alpha. So this is our Intel library. If you're interested in checking out, and this is 100% free, we don't charge for this. Our DeFi University, we don't charge for that either.
Education.
Yeah.
Free education, man.
You're not going to, I know I always say, you're not going to find a group of guys that have more integrity than we do. I mean, we give away stuff that.
My mama on that.
Well, dude, we give away more than most people, more valuable stuff than most people, charge for. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. The stuff that we give away, they charge thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars for, and we just give it away. So we're not malicious. We're not trying. We just genuinely want people. We don't accept money from any project. If we do interviews with them, if we do a deep dive on them, whatever, we don't accept money from anybody because we don't want to appear biased. Regardless, if we took money from somebody, regardless of how much integrity we had, you would always wonder, okay, they were paid, so did they did they take it easy on them on the interview? When they talked about the project, did they highlight the positive aspects more than the negative aspects? That's what you, I mean, admit it or not, that's what you ask yourself when you're listening to a channel. One of these influencers or educators or content creators. If you see a bunch of banners up where they have exchanges and they're advertising and all this, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, they're a business; they're trying to make money. But
Yep.
in the back of your mind, because I know I do, I'm like, okay, so if they're telling me about this exchange, is it because they have a code that if you sign up and you use it that they make money, or is it because it's a good exchange? You
Hmm.
know, it, I mean, am I
And
lying?
you watch some of our interviews with these projects. I mean,
Yeah,
DAG
yeah.
especially, and OPNet. We don't shy away from the
Tough
touchy
question.
questions.
No, we don't do cush interviews. Like if we
Yeah.
find something, we bring it up. OPNet, he was great. I actually wouldn't mind having him come back on and give us
And
some
we'll
help.
reach out to you beforehand, like, hey,
Yeah,
we're gonna ask certain questions.
yeah.
Like, we don't want to just have a gotcha moment. So we
No,
have more integrity than you would think. It's like, how many projects do that? Like, I don't
yeah,
want to have this gotcha moment,
yeah,
just to go viral. Like, no, we want to make sure that everyone's cool and
yeah.
comfortable and like we're, transparent.
Mhm.
So, yep.
No, OPNet. Beforehand, there was allegations that that they had rug pulled, a past project. And so we did some diving into it, and they were part of those projects, but it was very gray as far as their involvement. Like how involved were they? And so we got a hold of them, and we were like, hey, listen, you know, we heard some allegations, we did a little bit of digging. We feel it's important enough that we are going to ask questions about it. We don't, like Jeff said, we're not looking for a gotcha moment. But if you come on the show, we just want you to know, we're going to ask, all kinds of different questions and about what you're building, and we're going to, ask, good and bad questions, but we're going to ask you about this past project. And didn't skip a beat. The dude was like, not a problem, happy to answer any questions.
Mm-hmm.
And awesome, great. That
Mm-hmm.
to me, that was very, very professional. Spent like 10-15 minutes addressing the questions. There were even some people in the chat, if I remember right, that were asking him questions, and he addressed those. So yeah, it's like we are fully transparent here. Even the stuff that we charge for is we have free trials. So like the
Mm-hmm.
paid calls, the paid live calls, $99 a month. You can try it out for a week. You can do 3 of the live calls. If you think it's worthless, then don't buy it. If you find value, then buy it. Our newsletter, still under construction. You can use it for free. I highly suggest that you double and triple check the information, but you can use it for free. Our community, our Discord. Some people charge for that. We give it away. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. DeFi University, a whole structured learning course for crypto and DeFi. Come in here and use it.
And
No kidding.
Bitcoin
Yeah,
is in there too. Yep.
it's like come use it. It's free. We don't charge for it. So yeah, anybody that tries to say that we're scammy or we're shills or anything like that, they have not done their research. We are anything but scammy or shilly or anything like that. We're
Mm-hmm.
most critical of some of the projects that we're the most bullish on. David kicks me in the nuts constantly about Arrow, and we have heated debates constantly about Arrow, and I
Oh,
love it.
this morning was funny.
Oh,
You're
dude,
like,
and yeah, I love it because it forces me to go and keep digging and becoming more knowledgeable about Aerodrome so that I can fucking try to hand David his ass when we're debating, because I don't like losing in a debate, and so
yeah.
it forces me to go and do my due diligence and come loaded with ammo to where I can
Mm-hmm.
cite my sources. It's why we're so big on citing sources here, because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't cite your source, you're basically giving your opinion. It's like this is what I think
Yeah.
the project is doing, or I hope that they're going to accomplish. But if you can cite a source, like if I say that you know, the arrow token that if you buy the Arrow token, your tokens double each day. I could say that. Okay, prove it. Show me where in the documentation in the tokenomics that my tokens are going to double every day that I hold the token. You know, if you don't cite your source, if anybody that's been to college, if you have ever written a college paper, you have to cite your sources.
Yep. Yep.
We hold ourselves to that same standard. If you go in to our Intel library, and I'll go down to Morpho since that's what started this whole conversation. But this is all the projects that we've done deep dives on. And we don't claim they're 100% correct. We have told everybody out there, if anyone finds anything that's inaccurate in any of our deep dives, please let me know. I'm happy to adjust it. And yes, the videos and a lot of the materials, the slide decks and stuff like that, they are AI generated. Absolutely. I didn't, go through and use some freaking video thing and make make this video. AI did it, but I do go through these deep dives and I verify the high points as much as possible. Before we go live with it. But again, these projects change on a daily basis almost. So if we do a deep dive, it could be months ago, it could be weeks ago, and like Aerodrome, a shit ton is about to change about Aerodrome. We did a deep dive on Aerodrome. We're gonna have to do a totally new deep dive because they have a whole new protocol that is 100% different. Their tokenomics potentially are changing because they're merging with Velodrome, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. So, so let's look at the
and we make sure we're sourcing information from this year, as recent as this year. So it's not like we're getting stuff from 2024 and we're trying to, and I think even just like the last 6 months would be sufficient. Cause things change so quickly, and I don't know, is there a date or timestamps on when? Okay, yeah. All the intel has the days that they've been published, so you can make sure like it was within the past 6 months.
I think we did the Morpho one before our focus on value capture because I'm not seeing a whole lot in here. But one thing I do want to point out real quick is on all of our deep dives, this is we're holding ourselves to the same standard that we ask all of you. We have our source document. This is the base document that we build our deep dive off of. And in it, the last couple of pages of it, you can see is all of the hyperlinks. And again, we're not saying that all of these are going to be 100% accurate. Some of them are news outlets, some of them are official documentation, some of them are from the protocol or the DEX. They come from a lot of different centralized exchanges, their blogs and things like that. It comes from a lot of different places. So again, you can't take this as gospel. We admit that wholeheartedly. But again, this is going to give you a very general idea of what this project is about. And the allocation breakdown. So like it looks like Morpho governance, the DAO got about 35%. Strategic partners got 27%. Founders got 15%. The Morpho Association Reserve got 6%. Contributor reserve about 6%. Early contributors and users about 10%. So it gives you an idea of token allocation. So this is just all small things that you might want to know before you decide to invest or not invest in a project. That's all these deep dives are. They should not be taken as gospel. These aren't the Bible. These aren't something that you should structure your portfolio around. These are just ways to jumpstart you, to educate you. It's like the Cliffs Notes. Think of it as the Cliffs Notes of
Yeah.
that project.
Yep. Oh, so Crispy was saying that he was searching stuff about aerodrome flight school, and that's how he
Yeah,
found out about you.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
No, we've been one of the premier channels when it comes to alpha about aerodrome for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Helping
We
people figure out the locks and stuff, and
while we were
yeah,
figuring them out, you know,
yeah. Well, we.
and dude, I mean, I've learned a bunch from the community. There was I
Mhm.
forget who it was in our community. They let me know, what was it? Something changed on the locks. Oh, where you could plus up your lock. So initially, once you locked, that's what you had in there, and to get the flight school bonuses, you had to lock 2,500 or more arrow. For some reason, people were locking 2,500 arrow, but only like 2,400 and something would show up in the lock. And
Oh,
so, Ellie, she got bit by that. And But around that time frame, they changed it to where you could plus up your lock. And there was a couple people that were able to do that and get their flight school bonus, which was really really cool.
yeah, yeah. I real quick, I want to share this. I came
Yeah.
across this on Zenith. Um, so they dropped a June 2026 recap on the Canton signal. So stuff that's going on in the ecosystem and with them as well. So yeah, digital assets closed a 355 million Series F funding round led by A16Z Crypto. So they have 800 million total funding. Um, and what was it? Mastercard expanded stablecoin settlement. But yeah, Zenith had some news. Joins Japanese mega bank working group. Tokenized 1.6 trillion in the JGB repo market.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So and a bunch of other stuff. Palladium Labs launched the Genesis Fund, a 10 million CC grant program to support. I sent David this actually. So I think it was this one. So they're giving grants to projects that want to
Mhm.
build on the Canton network, and I sent it to David because I know he mentioned something about wanting to build on the network. So he was like, "Yeah,
Well,
that'd be a great idea to
we
apply
actually got
for."
approved to be a validator. We still need
Yeah,
to
that's right.
figure out how to become a validator because I mean we'll probably have to stake a bunch of Canton tokens, but um, like his app, the app that he's building out, his investment app.
Hmm.
It would be really cool to launch that, as an EVM, through Zenith, so that it was on Canton, and then run a validator on Canton, because that way, I mean, we could make money off the app, and we could make money off of being a validator.
Yeah, yeah, that's solid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and earlier I was thinking about the if Canton had a bug bounty program, and funny enough, they answer it right here. So they're
Oh,
doing a $10,000 bounty program, hackathon, because these. If you think about it, if these projects get hacked, it could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. Like we saw with Aave or the Kelp DAO, and you want to put out these bug bounties or these hackathons and charge 100 grand or a half a million in some cases, and it will end up saving you a lot more in the short term doing
mm,
that than it would cost you in the long term, and your credibility and trust. It's like, why would I want to use this project that got hacked if my money's going to be at risk. So yeah, seeing that is great. But yeah, take some time, check out some of these recaps from projects when they launch them. I think Base does it, Aerodrome, um, and yeah, Morpho, like I said, I saw that earlier. So it just kind of gives you a good overview of what's happening in the most recent months. So, because things move quick, man. Things move quick.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I can't stress that enough. I mean, we're kind of out of time. I mean, not that we couldn't keep going, but that's what I want to stress is if we do a deep dive on your project, don't take it personally. All we're doing is we're measuring it off of our trifecta. And can that change in the future? Absolutely. It's that it can tokenomics can change. That kind of thing happens all the time. There's been rumors that Ondo is just, I've been beating it up pretty good because it's a governance token. That's all it is. But there is rumors that supposedly, and it may or may not happen, that there's going to be a vote to where they're going to add some utility to it. What that is, I don't know. If, like I said, if it even happens. I know that Ty over at Kita has been mentioning the potential that the Kita token could play a role in anchors. What that's going to look like, I do not know. If it's going to happen, I do not know. So we just speak on the current state of projects. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be bullish on it. It just means that if you are an investor using our trifecta, value capture of the token, fees and revenue being generated, and adoption. If there is, institutions, individuals, whatever, building on that network, or if people are using that protocol, that DEX, like Hyperliquid. That is what we are judging these projects on. So please do not take offense if we give your project a C or a D. Again, it doesn't mean you're not going to make money. You can buy a meme coin that doesn't meet any of our criteria and potentially make a shit ton of money on a meme coin. You can 100x or 1000x sometimes on a meme coin. And I guarantee you, there isn't a whole lot, there's nobody building on it. There's no fees or revenue being generated. There's no freaking, value capture. It doesn't meet any of our criteria. You can make money off of it. We're not saying you can't make money. We're just saying it's not, as it sits, not a solid investment using our way of measuring it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
So
boom, mic drop.
Yeah, that's my closing thoughts. And I can't stress that enough. I hope that people see this and they have a better understanding of what this channel is about. Because again, we're just figuring this stuff out like the rest of you. We don't have any special insider info or anything like that. We're reading the fucking tea leaves in the stars and stuff like that. Just
you got
like
no Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, dude. We're Nancy Pelosi over here. We're just humble little investors.
Oh.
All right. What are your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts. All right, hold on. Let me where is it at? I'm trying to
You lose track of your lose track of your funny?
No, I'm trying to put this. Oh, there we go. Happy birthday, America. Have a great weekend. Happy 250th. Enjoy time with family and friends. Get out, touch some grass, get some sun, watch some fireworks, and be safe, please. If you're drinking and driving,
don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that
guy. Jimmy and Timmy. All right.
Jimmy!
Well, you know what? Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe. If you drink, don't drive. If you drive, don't drink. If you have sex, wear a condom. And if you're lighting fireworks, make sure that you're not holding them when they go off.
Point and until next time,
exactly. And until next time, Fetching Crypto out.
Peace, America.